So I would say when you think of boundaries is really assisting to identify and understand who you are.
Hi loves, I'm Dantea Mitchell-Hunter, your new fave self-worth therapist, and this is Detox Therapy. Quick note, even though I'm a fully licensed therapist, this show is not a replacement for therapy. If you find yourself needing a therapist, definitely search for one in your area. Now, if you want to work with me though, and you live in Washington, Georgia, or DC, then please go to my website at soireesintherapy.com and book your free 15-minute consultation. All right, welcome back, loves. Back again. We have a returning guest, just like I said would happen. I am bringing back my friend, one of the greatest therapists I know, Scarlett Ekaroma. You are already familiar with her from a previous episode. We talked about family dynamics. Lots of you have commented in and talked about how great that episode was. So I wanted to bring her back on because she's really good at setting boundaries. And I know boundaries is everything that is important. So I'm going to let Scarlett fully introduce herself again for those of you who may have missed that other episode. Scarlett?
Oh, thank you so much for having me back, Dantea. Again, it's such an honor to be in this space with you. And I just want to say that what you're doing is literally life transforming. So it's great to see it. So again, my name is Scarlett. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am the owner of Elevate Healing, LLC, which is an exclusive online private practice. I am an inner wound healing therapist and a personal boundaries coach. And as of last week, I'm a newly published author.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes.
Of course. Let's back up for just a moment there. Mm-hmm. Did you say boundaries coach?
I am. Yes. I am.
Yes.
Boundaries coach.
Yes. Yeah. People. Okay, we'll get into all that towards the end. Let me just say this though, listeners. If you are remotely considering working with this person, I would say get in now, okay? Because I might take the last seat. So I'm just saying. Okay. So let's jump right into boundaries. I love talking about this, so let's get into it. Mm-hmm. What do you think is most important when it comes to boundaries and how to understand them?
So I would say when you think of boundaries is really assisting to identify and understand who you are. So I think that's the core basic of it. And so what it identifies is how you like to be treated, what you like and don't like, and how someone's interacting with you. I mean, even goes down to like the type of events you would like attend. So really, it's really setting the standard for yourself and then for others around you. I think another important factor is boundaries really help you find your voice, really helps you build self-esteem and confidence. And just like, what you've always shared, Dante, is like working on self-worth as well.
Yeah.
I would also say that, the biggest thing like I've experienced with setting boundaries is I realized like the power in using my voice, especially when I decided to become consistent in setting my boundaries.
Yes, consistency.
Yeah. And so, but the other caveat of that with boundaries, there's definitely a lot of internal work you have to do, to continue again, to increase your self-worth. And that's work I've definitely done and continue to do. So, just for people out there, so they know, like, I sought and prayed for a support system. I have a great support system. I've read books to understand human behavior, created a different social circle. I went to therapy.
Yeah.
And I practiced these boundary skills like consistently, even though a lot of times when I first started, I felt, like I was an island on an island by myself, and I was scared. And the reason what I realized is like, I was scared because I was quieting everyone else's voice and like raising mine, which was absolutely new to me. And then part of that was also like, I knew that life could be lived differently, and I was willing to risk like the discovery to figure that out.
That makes a lot of sense. I like what you said. And I'm also still thinking about what you said earlier. You said like having standards for yourself. And so like how would someone know what their standards even are in order to start setting boundaries?
I think it goes to really thinking about like when it comes to individuals is like really like looking internally about the feeling you have around somebody. You know, really thinking about like, does this mission make me feel good in regards to, in particularly their behavior? Does their behavior that they're doing towards me makes me feel good? And if you're saying no, then you have to really think about like this, like, okay, what's the standard that I'm accepting? Like, if I'm going to continue on this way, it's just like, are the standards really how I value myself? You know, are the standards really like, am I going to be okay with this, whatever the status quo may be for you? Yeah. And if it's not okay, then it's really looking at like, what do I need to do differently for sure?
Yeah. So it's like a real changing of just like how you interact with people. So I'm thinking like, if I know my interaction with this person doesn't make me feel good, yet being female, being conditioned that I must water myself down and others in order for others to shine and grow, that you're asking me to do something like I've been trained to do. And that's really uncomfortable. And so like, how can you help our listeners think about like how to like kind of move through that uncomfortability of starting to, use your own voice, like you said before?
You know, I think I think part of that is really thinking about the skills you need to acquire, because it's a skill. It's learning the skills. So it's thinking about like in regards to a feeling. And it's just like, I mean, whether you do Google search, go to therapy, read a book, it's really thinking about like in regards to how to start setting the standard is really think about how you would like to be treated. Really, really thinking about that. So identifying that feeling, how the behavior you would like. And then that next process of, okay, how do I acquire the skills so that can happen for me? Yeah.
I feel like this is a good time for you to tell us a story, to really put this together. Can you share with us a time where like, one, you realize, okay, something's not working, start to find your voice, what's the boundary? Let us in, tell us about that.
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny because it was like, which story do I pick? Like,
yes.
Let me say this caveat. So in a lot of this, of course, has to do with a lot of family interactions that I had in early age, of course. And so part of this, my family and I are definitely in a better place now. And so part of this is to talk about the stories of progression of how it started, the middle, and then where am I currently at. Yes. So about 2010, late 20s, was in grad school. I just realized like at that time, I felt like my life could be different. So I would consistently ask myself, like, can I live life a different way? So growing up, I was the go-to person, the fixture, the superhero. I was the great big sister, always to look up to, was the middle child, second oldest, got good grades, was the problem solver, the go-to person to listen to. I was also the parentified child, which is AKA pseudo parent for those who don't know what that means.
Yes.
And total of siblings, I had 8. And then at one point, like again, that late 20s, because there's a transition when you go into your 30s that is just like, do I still want to do this, like life this way?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I realized like I didn't want to be that parentified person anymore. And unconsciously I was deemed the strong one because I did a lot of things well, which by the way, that strong shit is overrated. Yeah. Absolutely overrated.
Yeah. And unsafe.
And absolutely unsafe. So whether it was the paternal or maternal side of my family, they would always come to me for advice. Of course, they wouldn't listen. I would become extremely upset, sometimes even to the point of rage. And when it didn't work out, the family member would still come to me to be the cleanup person, which was bizarre to me.
Yeah.
And they would just literally look at me to do anything at all, just to fix it. And I'm just like, so of course there was this obligation that I felt like I had to fix it.
So just to get in there, so you being this pseudo parent, meaning like you are seen as a parental figure, yet without any of the respect. And so you're here, someone's coming up to you and they're saying, hey, help me with this. And you give them your best advice and they don't follow the advice. They go blow up their life. Then they come back to the pseudo parent to fix the thing that they blew up because they didn't listen to you.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Yeah. It was a constant cycle. And, you know, with that constant cycle came all these like, symptoms that I was having. So I would have like these massive headaches, this like wicked nausea. It was wild how horrible it was. Frequent, constant running thoughts. I couldn't sleep. I stressed and emotionally ate a lot, like a lot. And this people's what we call psychosomatic symptoms. Okay.
Yes. Educational drops.
And then what I realized is when I needed someone, I felt like no one was there. Because again, I was deemed the strong one because I did so many things well. Like everybody's like, oh, she's fine.
Yeah.
She's got it.
Yeah.
And it was in the evening. I was driving to my grad class. Something on both sides of my family, maternal, paternal, one of them had pissed me off, or probably all of them, just roll the dice at this point. And there was this huge aha moment that I had. And I'm like, because of course I was feeling all those symptoms. And I was just like, oh my God, it's my family. It's my family who is making me sick. And I'm like, what the F?
Yeah.
And I just remember going to grad class and I couldn't even think because it was such a mind exploding moment for me. And it was just like, wow, like I got to do something different. Like I was like, so at that time, even though I said I was doing something different, I now know is I had to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Like that was the conversation I started having with myself. And it was very hard.
What was that conversation?
So the conversation was just like, do you still want to do this? You know, do you still want to cry all the time?
Yeah.
You know, do you still want to be looked at as the person? Because that's the thing, like with the strong ones, it's literally, there's this unconscious thing that you do. Like you have to hold everything for everyone in the family because you're looked as the one that has it all together. And so I had said to myself, it's like, do I still want to do that?
Yeah. You
know, do I still, am I going to be okay with how my family looks at me if I decide to step away from this role? So, and that was really a lot of like, just dying of that identity that I just, you know, I don't even think like it was something that I wanted. I think it was just given to me because I did things well.
Yeah.
And so it was really just going into like, why am I doing this? Is it because I want to, or is it because somebody said I had to do it? So when I figured out it was because somebody said I had to do it. And then I went into like, well, what's the reason I have to do it?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah. So it's conversations like that. I mean, like all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So because that piece right there is where like the breaking of all of the shoulds and have to starts coming apart when you're like, do I have to do this? Like, do I have to always answer the phone when my dad calls me? Because if I don't, the backlash, whatever, right? Do I actually have to? Where's that written?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have to answer the phone every time he calls me. So now what do we do, right? So when we make that decision around, I don't have to do this, that's when it gets really scary. And so how did you, do you remember those first little tiny steps of like, okay, this is going to be the first baby boundary?
Yeah.
It's scary.
And it's funny because you say that about answering the phone because that's what it was. I mean, like I would literally be in college and my family would call me, and they lived in Orlando and I was in Gainesville. My family in California or Orlando would call me to do something. And I'm like, but do you know people actually live in your house who can do it?
Yeah. Yes.
And so the big thing that I remember doing it was not answering the phone and not answering my cell phone. And a lot of times I remember in college just not carrying my cell phone with me because that for me, it was just like they had easy access. to me, and I'm like, I don't want to be that accessible for them.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, when you said that, my heart dropped. So I already know some of the people I hear. I'm like, girl, no, I can never leave my phone. And it's like, this is not something permanent. Like you have your phone on you all the time now. You have Apple Watch. Like you got all the things going on for you. and in that moment, that was like your first step. Those were one of your first steps. Like, okay, I may not be ready to be like, hey, everyone stop calling me, please, because I'm not going to fix it. I'll just leave my phone at my house and I'll be gone for 4 hours.
And to take it a step further is I would purposely not listen to the voicemails until the end of the week.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because they listen, because I knew the voicemails was like, Scarlett, can you do this? Whatever it was. And I'm like, nope, I'm in school. Leave me alone.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that was like the further step that I took.
And so what would you call that boundary?
I would probably say that is a communication boundary for me, and then an emotional safe boundary for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this reminds me, when you talk about boundaries and silencing the voices and expectations of others and bringing up your own voice. And it sounds like for you, your own voice was saying, I need distance. I need some solitude around like how much we communicate. And that sounds like one of the first steps. And I love that. So we're just going to keep gently stepping our baby toes, everyone, into this, because I know it's a lot. I know. And you got this. We're going to keep doing this. So when you think about boundaries, sometimes people feel like boundaries are like, nope, cut it off, done, don't ever speak to me again, don't ever call me again, block you out, right? Are there ways for boundaries to be flexible, or do some need to be more strict? Can you give some reasons behind that?
Great question. So I think I'll say for me, it had to start off as very rigid because I had to get used to what I was trying to discover for myself, was like really identifying me and really identifying like, what do I like? And particularly more of like what I don't like and what I wasn't going to accept anymore. I think that the behaviors I wasn't going to accept anymore was really challenging, because it was just like, it almost feels like it's like, well, they're not going to like me or love me anymore. And that's not true.
No,
that's just not true. So my boundaries became more flexible as I became a healthier person. And it was important for me to become more flexible because I was changing into a new person. So the boundaries I started out with, which was very rigid, like don't talk to me, turned into like, okay, let's talk about the conversations I would like to be a part of.
Yes. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is my boundaries had to be rigid in the beginning because that's what I needed. That's the behaviors that I was receiving were not working for me. Yeah. And so I needed to put boundaries around those behaviors my family was giving me. And they became more flexible once I started to become a healthier person. I started to become a healthier person because of those boundaries that I set.
Yeah. Yeah, because I would say definitely at the beginning of me being rigid was really me practicing, like especially practicing saying no to any of my family, because I was so used to being like, okay, even though I didn't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
And so when I saw me getting comfortable with saying no, and then I went into like, well, here's what I can offer, because it was just no for me. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
And so now when I became healthier, it was now, okay, it's, I can tell you what I can offer instead of a flat out no.
Yeah. Yes. As you're talking about this, I remember that episode, on Sesame Street. This was years ago, where they said like, no, like just say no. You can just say no. And then later on in my life, I would start hearing like women say, no is a sentence, like no is a full sentence. Right. And it's so hard just to say no, just say no. And when you start practicing it, like you said, it becomes easier, and then you can give more reasons behind it. And I start laughing too, because I have a friend of mine who is going to have a baby shower, soon. And she was asking me, which category do I want to be a part of to like help make this baby shower come true, right? And I was like, nah, like I don't actually want to do any of that. So I'm going to say no to that. And let me know how I can support you financially to make sure it's the day you want it to be. Like that's where I'm at now. And and it's okay. And we're still friends and we still love each other. Like it's okay.
So I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for that description and walking through that because it's hard, especially with family. I also want to talk about, because here's something I feel like gets maybe minimized. I mean, you can tell me your thoughts behind this. We think about like, okay, I need to set a boundary. So I set that boundary. Great. And it's like part 2, which I feel like is the more advanced level. And the part that's really important is maintaining the boundary, right? Because I'm sure with your family, when you set the boundary, they push back as people would, because they're trying to figure out, wait, that door used to be here. I mean, that door wasn't here before, and now it's here. How can you speak to like that part 2 of it, the holding up the boundary?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one of the biggest, people who are violators is your family, because they absolutely take advantage of the title family, and so I had to, when I started having those same feelings of like this yuckiness, like, this like dredge of like them asking me stuff. So I went again into that whole thought process of like, okay, Scarlett, you've seen this show before. We know what it looked like when you didn't have boundaries and how you felt and like everything that followed after that, because the violation doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It just continues to happen. And I said, and when you did it, you saw they had a different response to you and you felt better. So make a choice. You have to make a choice. Yeah. And so because it's absolutely easy to fall back into old patterns because that's what they're used to seeing you as. And so when I still do that thought process till today, and I'm just like, what do we want to do? Like, how do you want to show up? What ways can you show up? So really just asking about what is important to me. Yeah. And that I can still be a part of the family. I can show up in this way, not the way you want me to show up for you.
Absolutely. And it sounds like some of that, the reasons to continue to maintain the boundary is because you remember like how it made you feel good. So I'm going to keep holding up this boundary because that makes me feel good. If I go back to the old ways, which may happen, it's natural. Absolutely. I get a reminder of, ooh, ouch, eek, I didn't like that. Now I'm sad. Now I'm depressed again. Now I'm overeating or whatever. And when I maintain the boundaries, I feel more joy. I feel peace and even emotional safety.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause cause I go into this as like, what's the hard choice you're going to make? Are you going to make the hard choice for what's better for you? Or are you going to make the choice that best suits your family? Yeah. So I like, that's that whole, okay, what actually works for me? And then every single time I said it out, yes, my family's upset. But the one thing I had to say to myself consistently was, just because they're upset at me does not mean they love me less.
Yes, exactly.
That was a huge thing because of course when we see, especially our primary caregivers, parents or whoever it is, when they were mad at you when you were young, there's this automatic thing like, I'm not lovable, and that's not true. And it's just like, they still love you. And it would have been better if they would apologize. I'm just saying. And so you have to continue to tell yourself that it's just because someone is mad at me does not mean I'm less lovable, does not mean they love me less.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because then that would be conditional love, right? Like, saying no means, oh, okay, you're deducted 10 points of love now. Like, and that's really stressful. And it's not like that. I can have a boundary. I can have a time limit and I'm still loved and that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure.
I love it. Scarlett, like I said before, people, I mean, do you hear it? Do you see it? Are you feeling it? Yes, this is someone who really understands the work of boundaries and the importance behind it and how this is just truly a lifelong thing. And you just keep adjusting your boundaries. They can go from rigid to flexible, back to rigid again if needed. It's okay. So as we start to like wrap this up, Scarlett, can you tell us, as you mentioned kind of before, a little teaser, little spring, anything you want to share with the audience about what you're working on, anything upcoming?
That's such a loaded question, but I love it.
It's loaded? How so?
Because I'm like, when am I not working on something?
Well, that part is true.
As I said earlier, I'm a newly published author. So I recently released a prompt journal, which is called My Worries and Wins Journal. Over the galaxies about it, because it was definitely a labor of love. You can get it on Amazon.com now.
Yes.
So order, please. And the reason why I'm excited about this journal is because part of why I went into this is to thinking about the person who can't see me.
Yeah.
As a therapist. And so, this journal helps individuals, who can't afford therapy or just don't utilize it for whatever reason they have. And this journal helps people have a therapeutic experience, which is what I'm like so ecstatic about.
Yes.
The second big thing that I'm working on is in March. First time announced ever.
What? Exclusive.
No one has heard this before, but in March, I'll be hosting a free webinar about setting personal boundaries. And then following that, I will be having a course around setting personal boundaries as well. So in the webinar, I will definitely be going into further detail that I went into, what I first started talking about in this episode. And, this is something I'm telling people is something you want to sign up for.
Yes.
It's life transforming. It's empowering. And I'm just excited of really what I put together.
I'm so excited. And so you're doing a webinar that people can sign up for, and they get to learn more about like how to set boundaries and everything.
Exactly.
I love
it. So here's what I want you to do, people.
Yes.
So that you're aware of when the webinar is going to be released. Go to my website, elevatehealingllc.com. Scroll all the way to the bottom until you can't scroll anymore. There's a link that says join the webinar waitlist. Click on it, put your email in there. Because I'm telling you again, this is the course you don't want to miss. And of course, take advantage because it's free.
We like free.
we exactly love free. If everybody who knows me well is like, Scarlett will look for the free.
Yes, yes. I love that. We will make sure we'll have the link to your website, of course. And we'll have the link to your awesome journal and all the places that people can find you. So I'm excited. Sure. I'm excited to hear about it. Everyone, if you happen to take the course, which I hope you do, please let me know how it went and we can talk about it, because I'm so excited for people to have access to Scarlett in a larger way for who may not be able to get to see her one-on-one. It's going to be phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Scarlett, for coming on again. I am sure for as long as I have this podcast, you will be back again. And so for all the listeners, I really hope that you enjoyed this time with Scarlett. And I really hope that you're thinking about the ways in which you can really have a moment with yourself and be like, what do I not want to keep experiencing in my life? Maybe starting with family, maybe starting with friends, and then move from there. So you got this. I believe in you. It's going to be just fine. All right. Until next time. Bye. Thank you, loves, for listening to this week's episode. If you're enjoying the show, it'd be really great if you could please rate and review. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Soirees in Therapy. To learn more about the services I offer, visit soireesintherapy.com. If you've got a question you'd like me to answer, please send your question to Dantea at soireesintherapy.com. The answer might just become an episode.